Like death, taxes, and the wailing howl of Josh Brown when he runs out of hairspray, movie spoilers are an inevitable part of life, and boy, do they have the ability to piss people off. It's incredibly hard in this day and age to avoid them as well, with spoiler culture, which I'm sure should be our new channel name, being absolutely rife. However, the question arises, we all know that a spoiler can ruin a movie, but does it have to? And when is it acceptable for people to freely talk about the secrets of a film? I mean, I still get people having a pop at me for apparently ruining Fight Club, and that film is older than most of the staff here. So let's try not to spoil a good thing together, shall we? And have a little chat. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and this is the true history of movie spoilers. So let's begin at the beginning, as spoiler culture has existed way before the internet came up with a term for it. I mean, hell, back in Victorian times, novelist Wilkie Collins warned critics against spoiling his 1859 mystery novel, The Woman in White, and fans literally queued outside the publisher's office waiting for a copy to be delivered. When it comes to films, though, the first major movie to actively engage with the concept of spoiler culture was the 1926 silent film The Bat, in which its opening titles asked the audience, "Can you keep a secret? Don't reveal the identity of the Bat." I bet it was Bruce. A far more prominent example came decades later with the 1955 legendary French psychological thriller Les Diaboliques, which ends up with the title card saying, "Don't be evil, don't destroy the interests that friends could have in this film." But by far the most memorable example of early spoiler guardianship in the golden age of Hollywood was Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Famously, Hitchcock insisted that cinemas deny entry to any late cinema patrons to ensure the surprise of Janet Leigh's early exit from the film remained intact. Legend even suggests that Hitchcock attempted to buy up every copy of the 1959 novel in the quest to keep spoilers under wraps. A few decades later, The Crying Game also did a fantastic job teasing audiences regarding its big secret in marketing, with the tagline reading, "The movie everyone is talking about, but no one is giving away its secrets." And the excitement about what the reveal might be stirred up enough business to make the film a sleeper hit and eventual Best Picture nominee. Nowadays, though, spoiler culture is a much bigger deal and more pervasively recognised by the mainstream. Just this year alone, Avengers Endgame boasted a memorable "Thanos demands your silent" social media campaign regarding spoilers, and Quentin Tarantino begged critics to keep plot details locked down following the Cannes premiere of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yet in the past, information was much easier to control, and it's thanks to the rise of the internet that we now have so much access to, well, everything, that it now means that keeping a film secret is harder than ever. I am totally aware too that we are part of this machine. We report on films, we hype them up with news and trailers and explain spoilers in lists. We do it because it's what people want to watch. It's a strange situation, to be sure. And it must have been a strange situation when, in 1983, a Usenet post that spoke about Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan just 4 days after its release casually used the phrase "spoiler alert." This was one of the first, if not the first, uses of the phrase, and now it's become so common that it's actually embedded in what cinema is, as well as also producing that horrible fear of being the one receiving the spoiler. It's worth noting that, until relatively recently, it was very common for major Hollywood blockbusters to receive staggered worldwide releases, with films landing in Europe many months after they'd come and gone stateside. With the rise of spoiler culture, though, we've seen a massive shift take place, and now films often prefer to drop worldwide or just days apart in order to minimize spoilers being passed around on the internet. Well, that and the fact that the biggest spoiler might be that it actually just sucks. I mean, consider last year's disastrous The Predator. Mere hours after it was screened, every minute detail of the plot was available online, which likely contributed hugely to its box office failure. This has led many studios shortening or altogether scrapping advanced previews for reviews in an effort to give their possibly slightly stinky films a chance to rake in the cash before the internet spreads the good word. Case in point, 2015's Fantastic Four reboot, which didn't screen for American press until just 2 days before release in the hopes of minimizing the spread of news that it was just crap. So what we're seeing is that it's becoming increasingly common for studios to defend this stance under the guise of protecting audiences from spoilers, when in actuality it may simply be that they want to keep their audiences in the dark. However, even this won't stop the leaks, as videos of spoilers, post-film credits, and even large chunks of the movie in question will find their way online within weeks, days, even within hours, and it seems like no movie is fully protected against this type of leak. Yet it's here that we come to a strange bump in the road. For while you might think that I'm inferring these leaks came from anonymous members of the public, we also have to consider leaks coming from other sources, like professional reviewers who get to see the movies ahead of their release. Roger Ebert famously said back in 2005, critics have no right to play spoiler. And this is ultimately the truth. Just because you've seen the movie early doesn't give you the right to spoil it for others, especially when you're being paid for the privilege. Now I know a lot of you might be firing up the old keyboard with, well, what culture is guilty of this too? And yes, I will never claim otherwise, as in the past I'm sure that we've posted reviews that clue the reader or viewer in on the film beyond what would consider a spoiler-free experience. But this has led our company and so many others to post spoiler warnings before we discuss, because now it is more important than ever to try and find the line between giving a breakdown of our experience and not spoiling the best bits for those yet to see it. What the internet has done for movies is strangely a double-edged sword. It has democratized film discourse across the world, allowing anyone and everyone the platform to let others know what they thought about the film. But in that process, it's created a quite murky water where there's no defined honor code regarding how one presents and discusses spoilers. In order to counter this, we've seen a rise in tags on videos, like I've mentioned before, communities and online forums with strict no-spoiler rules, and even browser extensions that can block spoilers. We've even hit a state now where people deactivate social media sites around the times of release in order to remain unaware. Yet now we move from the impact that spoilers have on the public to the other side of the coin. For you see, while spoilers are terrible for the public, for the studios, it's actually an industry. And it can become, in a terrible sense, a powerful marketing tool. A very common phrase that you hear in the lead up to a film's release is that the trailers have basically ruined the entire plot, and it's not an unfounded claim. With teasers, multiple trailers, extended trailers, and hype spots, a ton of huge moments are revealed sometimes months before release, and it's a strange case of watching the film spoil itself, and yet, you still go and watch it. As a case example, Robert Zemeckis' movies Cast Away and What Lies Beneath both pretty much laid out the entire movie in their trailers, and in an interview years later, he actually confirmed that this was a conceited effort on part of the studio. This is what he said: "We know from studying the marketing of movies that people really want to know exactly everything that they're going to see before they go to see the movie. It's just one of those things. To me, being a movie lover and film student and a film scholar and a director, I don't. What I relate it to is McDonald's. The reason McDonald's is a tremendous success is that you don't have any surprises. You know exactly what it is going to taste like. Everyone knows the menu." Furthermore, a 2011 study at UC San Diego tested what effect spoilers had on the enjoyment of short stories, and found that telling subjects the big twist ahead of time actually enhanced their enjoyment in almost every scenario. In fact, the marketing campaigns like the "Thanos demands your silence" actually serve to drum up even more interest in the film itself, as it's telling the audience that there is something within the film that is worth spoiling and therefore is worth their time and money in the first place. Therefore, the relationship between spoiler culture and the studios is one that can be at once detrimental to the film itself, but also be one, if spun correctly, can work in their favour. So here we're seeing Hollywood sell us a film by telling us what surprises it has in store. But things get even weirder when you consider that they also sell us equally with lies. By this, I mean let's talk about the times that film trailers and shots actively showed us scenes that didn't exist in the final version. Iron Man famously never caught the helmet thrown by Pepper Potts before stating that he loved her. J.J. Abrams told us continually that Benedict Cumberbatch was not going to play Khan, even though he totally did. And even The Amazing Spider-Man 2 lied to us by showing us tons of photos of the Rhino behind the scenes and in trailers, only for this to literally be a cameo and little else. These misleading or down-and-out misrepresentations of films all were spoilers in their own right, and all were exploited to get bums in seats. Here we see spoiler culture being used to drive sales while at the same time doing the exact thing that on paper none of us wants: to be sold an experience that isn't what we were promised. However, it's not all bad news, as in some cases the studios and directors actually change scenes to protect its audiences from bigger spoilers. For example, in Avengers Endgame, Thanos' gauntlet has been altered so that it doesn't show how many stones it actually had in it in the final release. Everyone applauded this decision as an example of the director showing the foresight to protect the film's secrets. So now we've seen how movies and audiences can both lose and benefit from spoiler culture, but where is it headed? Well, for one, because of the massive rise in the amount of video-on-demand releases to streaming platforms, we might actually see an increase in spoiler culture. By dropping across all markets on the same day, they don't need to wait for reviews to circulate, and also provide instant access to content which can then be shared on social media day one without having to keep your phone away in the cinema. It may well become impossible to avoid spoilers because modern technology allows us to interface with media in close to real time, and therefore it's only going to get tougher for people to avoid being spoiled. The reality of this likely means tighter screening protocols and later press embargoes for movies. After all, the very first Avengers movie was screened to press almost a full month before it hit cinemas, while Endgame was mere days before. In short, as sad as it sounds, it looks like we're going to have to head to the hills or take a long camping weekend if we're ever going to avoid spoilers going forward. And there we go, that was the true history of movie spoilers. I hope that you enjoyed this because you know what, I did as well. It's less doing list stuff and more being able to chat about editorial pieces, and I find that a lot more thought and a bit more creativity goes into it. Makes me feel very happy to do, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well. I hope that you have a bloody good day, my friends, as well. But before I jet off into the sunset or whatever it is that I'm going to do, I just want to leave you with one little piece of advice. It's very easy for our day to be spoiled. It's very easy for things to put us into a negative mindset and for us to think that the world is crashing down around us. But in those moments, in those times of overwhelming emotion, it is okay to take a step back and ask for help. Remember, you are not alone. You don't have to deal with all of these problems on your own because you can reach out and speak to people, be they friends, be they family, be they actual professionals in the support industry. Don't let your day be spoiled. Say something. As always, I've been Jules. You can follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter. You have been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.